Hey, yo, my friends, how the hell is it going? Welcome back to the premiere podcast, this hell that we have built for ourselves in Madness Pod. Shawn the Butcher here with a very haunting Vertebrae33. What's going on? How's it going?
Shh.
Oh, no. I'm already dead. Now you tell me after I'm dead.
The whole time I'm watching this movie, and we're going to get to it, the entire time I'm watching this movie, I'm thinking, how long does Shawn last?
I had this conversation with my girlfriend. She said not even 30 seconds because, like, when I'm at home, every minute I have to go and clear my throat. And the second I did that in a quiet place, I'd be dead.
Done. Over. Finished. Anyway, I'm good, Shawn. Excited to talk about this movie. Was excited for our last episode when we had John Langan on, author. That was an amazing episode. Go back and listen to it. What do you got going on? How's everything with you?
Everything's fine now that we got this hell that we have created for ourselves figured out. You know what pisses me off? You know what's happening, Vertebrae? Do you know what is happening, Vertebrae? Technology is battling us and trying to defeat us, but we will not let it win. It's your constant fight with AI, and we're having our constant fight with computers, but we're good.
Yes.
Everything is swell. I'm very excited for this movie because I don't know. I mean, I'll ask you now. Had you seen this movie before we covered it? Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And I also wanted to shout out John Langan real quick because that book, The Fisherman, before we came on, I was talking about how I like engulfed myself in the book. And it was I did it on audiobook. So if you can't, picture yourself reading or the entire time, you can listen to it while you're driving to work or whatever. Check out The Fisherman. Shout out to John Langan. Much love, much respect for him being a guest on our previous episode.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yes. And I have seen our film. Well, we already said it, right? So we don't have to be. It's funny. Yeah. We always tease it, but it's the title of the episode when they put it. When they
of course. But it's always fun to tease it so we get people guessing for the week. My teases were all of these places have this movie title in common. I believe I said what a tomb and a library,
yes,
and a class during testing. I'll let you quickly ponder on what that is. Make sure you check us out on the socials at InMadnessPod, InMadnessPod@gmail.com. In our next 0.5, we are dipping into the mail sack and we are reading your emails. If you want to ask us anything about any of our previous episodes, InMadnessPod@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, 5 stars everywhere. Check out the In Madness Spotify playlist. Oh, I'm getting to a Vertebrae, I promise. In Madness Monday, if that is when you're listening, happy In Madness Monday. Spread the madness worldwide. Do you boys a favor. Tell everybody you know about this show and all the fun you have listening to it, because we have just as much fun doing it for you. Vertebrae, what awesome mug do you have for this episode?
Well, I don't have a mug for the movie, so I've got my Vertebrae33 mug that you can buy on my store. Look, I'm hawking goods. Vertebrae33 mug, because I was like, A Quiet Place. What do I have? Just a white mug? Like, what do I, do I have to just drink out of it very quietly? Can I use a straw?
Yeah, do you make the disgusting like slurp noise when you drink from your mug? Because that's what would get you in this world.
Yeah, not anymore. I don't.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Do it through a straw.
Yeah, I got to get chased by those giant ear monsters.
So, episode 32, since we have already said it multiple times, we are finally covering A Quiet Place. I'm very excited. I mean, mainly we did this. I recently saw A Quiet Place Day 1 in theaters, and I thought it was one of my favorite movies of the year. I also just saw Long Legs, which I thought would have been my favorite movie of the year. And boy, did I walk out cranky from that one.
Wow, I'm shocked. I have not spoken to anyone who hasn't absolutely been enthralled with that
Have you
film.
seen it, Vertebrae?
Sean, where is it playing currently?
Oh, in the movies. I know, I
It's
know, I
playing
know.
in the movie. Are they playing it in my backyard? No, I haven't seen it.
No,
But
and
I'm
my
hoping it streams soon. I am really looking forward to it. If you hear this episode in the future, then maybe I had seen it and maybe we're going to cover it. I've heard nothing but good things, but we
the
will
first
see.
half of it, I was hooked. Then it was like the barbarian turn, that
Hmm.
moment, our milking of the alpacas, where everything, and I
And
was
you didn't like the turn?
either it's oh my god, awesome, or and the life gets sucked out, and my life gets last far.
I got a prediction. I have a prediction. I haven't even seen this movie, and I already have a prediction. I have a prediction that I'm going to see it,
Mm-hmm,
and I'm going to like it. And I'm
mm-hmm.
going to be like, Sean, you got to watch it again. Trust me. You got to see this, this, and this. And then you're going to go, you know what? I watched it again. I saw this, this, and this.
I went into it with my in madness mind. I watch movies differently because of this podcast, I will tell
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
hopefully it is the same for the listeners. I absorb things differently now. And if we do it, it'll be your Lucy.
Oh, we'll see. I've got plenty of other films that could be my Lucy, actually. We get there. I haven't hit you with any of those yet. But
Let's do it. Let's get to the
A
rundown for a
Quiet
quiet place.
Place,
Yes.
released 2018, directed by John Krasinski. We all know as Jim from The Office, right? Mostly known for that. Screenplay written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. That was a story they conceived while in college, and they began writing the screenplay in 2016. And then when Krasinski comes on, he adds a lot to the screenplay, and they work together. And the score, which I do have on vinyl behind me, is by our buddy Marco Beltrami, who also did. He's done like a ridiculous amount of movies, but Hellboy, the first four Scream films, Underwater, I,
Mm,
Robot,
mm.
Knowing. He's just done a lot of films. Really, it's weird because it's a really good score, but that's not what anybody comes out of this film talking about. They come out talking about the open spaces between score and sound effects, the quiet. But filmed in upstate New York in 2017. It was a pretty quick shoot. And Emily Blunt is the mom, John Krasinski is the dad, and they're a real life couple. So that makes interesting for them. There's even photos of their family on set that actually have their real family in it with their real kids, but it's blink if you miss them type thing. And they have Noah Jupe as Marcus Abbott, the second son, and then Millicent Simmons as Reagan Abbott. And she does an amazing job as a deaf actor who they got for the role, and she's really, really good, really good. And then poor Cade Woodward as Bo Abbott, but it's poor little fella. But the reaction to this film is over the top. People go crazy for this movie when it comes out. It's funny, Sean Krasinski says that he felt this was like a theater movie. Now, I couldn't. The first time I saw it, I couldn't help but thinking, I don't know what theater he goes to, but we're like 38 minutes into this movie before anyone says anything. All I would hear is people chomping on popcorn and slurping
So
soda.
real quick, I do want to say, seeing this movie in theaters when it did come out for the first time, you gotta pray that you are in a good theater with people who can actually shut the hell up, because the majority of this movie happens in total silence. And in theaters, of course, like you said, you hear people eating candy, eating the popcorn, but like this movie is so quiet, you can hear other people in the theater breathing.
Mhm.
Luckily, I did. This was a rare, good theater experience for me, as have been all of the Quiet Place movies. The tension it builds with the silence is part of the movie, and the audience rightfully participates in that. It's one of my many things that makes this such a great movie. And then, of course, there's the monsters.
Yeah, and so this movie gets this incredible reaction, and Stephen King sends out this tweet, and I'm going to read his tweet because this was a really big deal for this film. And when you get King to comment on something you either wrote or made, it's a big deal for people in this genre. So he says, A Quiet Place is an extraordinary piece of work, terrific acting, but the main thing is the silence and how it makes the camera's eye open wide in a way few movies manage. So you watch this film differently with all of this silence. And once we get started, you'll be explaining it to everybody. But I dare you, it's called A Quiet Place. I dare you to watch this movie and listen to Shawn talk about it at the same exact time. I think it would be great. You're doing the audio commentary for these people. So
I mean, I can whisper the whole time,
yeah.
but I feel like that'll put people more to sleep, more so than I already do during the regular podcast.
Yeah. We'll just the first 30 minutes of this podcast, we'll just say nothing. We'll just
Yeah,
look at each other.
we'll sign language the
Oh, I wish I
thing.
could, man.
I
I
wish
wish I
I could
could.
too. I wish I could sign
Yeah.
language and speak Spanish. That would be awesome if I could do
Yeah,
those.
or another language. But this is one of our many episodes where we name the things that we're not capable of doing. I feel like we should talk about things sometimes that we actually can do, because it makes us sound like just wimps who can't do.
I'm really good at doing dishes. I'm
Right.
phenomenal at taking out garbage. I do an excellent job mowing the lawn. I feel like once my lawn is mowed, I walk around it like Hank Hill with my hands on my hips, and I'm like, good job. Good job.
See, there you go. This is the episode where we lean into positivity. Fantastic. I think we should just get going.
Let's go. Let's go. The movie opens. We're at day 89. The streets look like a wasteland, totally empty, sort of like COVID did. We see missing people posters everywhere. It looks like everyone left all their belongings real quick. We see these little feet scurry across the floor in the market. People are tiptoeing around barefoot in the market. Everything is very quiet. Two children are checking the store. Everything is super tense. We see one of the children, the daughter, Reagan, has a hearing aid implant. Mother, Evelyn, approaches looking for pills in the pharmacy. One of the kids looks very sick. This is Marcus. Quietly, Mother is looking through the pills. She finds the correct ones and gives them to Marcus. She turns around and looks at her daughter, Reagan, and tells her Marcus is okay. Reagan approaches the much younger brother, little happy Bo, who is in one of the aisles of the store, and he's drawing on the floor. He tells Reagan he's drawing a rocket, and they're speaking in sign language. He says, "This is how we will get away." Reagan seems troubled by this, but Bo seems to be having himself a blast. He goes to a shelf, reaches for a toy rocket, and clumsily knocks it over. Before it hits the floor, Reagan leaps, catches it, and Father Lee approaches the entrance of the store.
And so all of this is in dead silence. And, this opening scene, Shawn, the shelves are mostly empty, except for the aisle that has like potato chips. I wonder why. All the crunchy snacks are still there on the
I
shelf.
didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because why would you take the crunchy snacks? I mean, here's the problem. That's when they get us right away. John will be like, we're going to be like, Doritos? Hey, what if we mix Doritos and Cheetos? Why are they all here? Let's go.
The whole
Boom.
supermarket's ours.
Yeah, we're done. We'll just chew with our mouth closed. We'll be fine. What could go wrong?
Pouring the M&Ms into a big glass bowl.
The other thing is, so Reagan wears, it's not a hearing aid. It's called what they call a cochlear implant. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Cochlear implant. Yep, gotcha.
So it's for a certain type of hearing loss. So it translates vibrations in the air into nerve impulses, and then brain perceives them as sound. And that plays a part in the movie later on. So I want to tell you this movie only contains about 25 or so lines of voice dialogue.
It is my shortest in notes of In Madness pod history because there's no dialogue.
Right. So it's that, and then there's sign language, which is used extensively, which is, dialogue as well, but voice dialogue is for 25, 26 lines of that. So here we go. And the sound, the no sound in this scene, we've already, I love that they just plopped us right into this. Like, we get a little bit, there's some signs that say missing. You see all the missing stuff as they pan. but we don't get like some, and I love it when they explain everything, but we don't get a lot of that in the beginning. They drop us into this universe, and as we go along, and this is what's cool about this is now there's 3 of these films, so they fleshed a lot of it out. And if you like that way that they've done it, fantastic. I haven't seen the new one, so I don't know, but you can't replicate the first time you see this movie. And as you sort of realize, oh, that's why they do this, or oh, that's why they did that, those revelations come, a lot in this film. And I think so your first viewing experience of this is pretty riveting, because you
I
just
al-
have no idea what's
I
going
also
on.
love that the third installment of this series is like day one. So it took them 3 movies to get to day one, the very beginning, because the sequel to this is just a sequel to what happens to this family. It's not, they don't go back in time, or at least not that I remember. But yeah, I love that it took the third movie to get them to day one. And honestly, no spoilers or anything, but you still don't really find out what you see. Things happen, but you don't really find, they still don't give explainy bits as to, oh, this is how and this is why and this is when. Like, you don't really get all that, but you see the initial, I won't get into it anymore, no spoilers. Lee has this sack of new items he's retrieved. He's showing them to Reagan. She asks if they're for the radio. He says it will help boost the signal. They're doing this in sign language. He pulls out a little handheld tool. Lee tells her that it's a gift for her. Mother approaches with sick Marcus, says it will be dark soon. Happy little brother Bo walks toward the family, and everyone stops dead in their tracks and looks at this kid like he is carrying a bomb. Our father Lee slowly approaches Bo and takes the toy rocket out of his hand. Then Dad takes the batteries out of the toy, puts everything on the counter, looks at Bo very concerned and says, "Listen to me." Too loud. And Bo looks very sad.
Yeah, what a bummer for him. But I think just leaving it on the counter when they walk out is a poor way to get rid of it. But
Clearly, the family exit the store. We see newspapers blowing in the wind. On the cover, it says, "It's sound." Back inside the store, Reagan smiles at Bo, gives him the rocket ship. She smiles and gives him the little shushy finger over the mouth. She leaves. Bo follows, but as he goes, he grabs the batteries.
hmm.
Families walking through these empty streets, they're walking on sand to make their footsteps quieter. But I also don't feel like walking on the pavement would have made that much noise. I feel like walking on the sand almost makes more noise.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it helps, because you don't. I think it's more. I don't know if it's about the sound as much as it is you're barefoot. So I think it is the sound, but I also think you're barefoot, so you're walking on something soft and it's been cleared, so you don't, as we find out later, step on something nasty. So yeah.
Kind of Home Alone shit is this? The family is walking in a straight line with happy little Bo in the back of the line. The family approach a bridge. Everything is very quiet. We get these very long shots of Father Lee holding sick Marcus, happy mother, happy sister Reagan. But in the back of the line, at the very beginning of the bridge, Bo stops. Which, my friends, brings me to my milking of the alpacas moment.
Yeah, whose moment? Everyone's got this as their milking of the alpaca's moment. This is
Predictable milking of the alpacas, but I did not expect this one.
not a predictable moment in the movie at
Yes.
all, but definitely. And after you describe it, I'll kind of give you Krasinski's thought on it.
Let's go. The camera is looking at Lee, the father, and from behind him, we hear all these little toy rocket noises. Everyone is immediately worried, and the sound drops out completely. Mother covers her mouth. Lee puts down Marcus, begins running towards Bo. Reagan, the sister with the implant, does not know what's going on. She can't hear the noises until Lee runs past her, and she turns around and we see happy little Bo playing with his rocket that he put the batteries back inside of. The shit has hit the fan. We see something running through the woods that is trying to get Bo. Before it does, he does not. This amazing looking monster with long legs, long arms quickly jumps out from the forest, and in Vertebrae's favorite daytime horror, this thing jumps out from the trees, snatches happy young Bo, and the screen cuts to black. Holy shit. Across the screen, we get the title, A Quiet Place. That is how you start a movie, my friend. I am hooked from the very beginning.
We're 10 minutes in and we've already got all of that. They've explained to us kind of their situation. We've seen a creature. They do a cool little effect with some sand and the title card that comes on, which is really neat. And, you know, a couple things. One, Krasinski says his quote is, "The power of a child dying set up what I found to be a great opportunity to instill the terror of this reality." He says the movie version would say, "Well, the child can't die because nobody can take that. I made the conscious decision to make it the first scene because I wanted that rule to unlock the movie for the rest of the experience." So by making this the first scene, you're like, well, now anything can happen. Like who's getting out of this movie alive, or any of them getting out of this movie? And we, as you watch it, kind of have different theories. I thought for sure that Reagan would be the only one, when I watched it, would be the only one to make it out. I just thought her being deaf and, you know, the creatures and their sound connection to sound, I thought that was just kind of an interesting way to go. But then that would mean that we wiped out we wiped out other kids and mom and dad on the way. So my version might have been even more brutal than this in that way. Also, Shawn, this kid, so man, I've set up a lot of toys and stuff for a kid, and for the life of me, man, sometimes those flaps to get the battery in there, it's like hard to get. You got to get a hold of something, or this one didn't have a little screw, and then put the batteries in the right direction. So I like to think the entire walk he's behind them just trying to
Putzing around with the stupid
figure it
battery.
out, right, and make sure they get it in correctly. But um you know, too smart for his own good in this case, Bo. And, you know, we don't get any animals injured in this movie like we used to get all the time, but they hit us hard with a small child, like
We
right away.
do. We do. We do.
Oh, yes, we do, actually. Yeah.
No animal makes it out alive of In Madness
I
Pod.
forgot.
Cut
Yeah,
to
you're right.
day 472. So it's been more than a year of this living in silence, which begs the question, Vertebrae, do you think you could do it? Would you make it past day one? If you did, do you think you could stay quiet enough to make it to day 472?
Listen, Vertebrae was an only child growing up who's who sat by himself. It sounded like I was doing a Morgan Freeman there for a second. Small child that
Vertebrae.
lived alone. But you know, that just drew monsters already. And I think I could. I think I could. Could I survive all the rest of it? No. Could I survive like the being quiet part? Like if somebody else was in charge and could come up with all these other systems to
But
work
you couldn't
through?
survive the survival part.
I don't think so. I mean, listen, if I'm there with my family and I have to figure out a way to
Gut
keep
this
them
fish.
alive,
Yeah.
yeah, you're good. Then you're gonna do what you have to do. If you got no other choice. So yes, in that case, I could. If I was just a single guy, you know, on my own, there's nothing else to kind of live for. I don't think there's any way. I don't think there's any way I could do it. But with Shawn, I give you, yeah, I don't,
Not past day one.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
too
it's not a
loud.
long
I'm too
time.
loud.
Yeah.
I'm too ugh, ugh. The second the power went out, I'd be like, "What the is going on here?" And boom,
They probably got all the DJs first.
yeah. Oh yeah.
They wiped them out first.
My
But
big ass mouth.
it's crazy because could you imagine? I think of when we watch these movies, like when this stuff takes place in somebody's life. So we have the main characters here, but it's obviously affected the entire planet, I would assume. And imagine you're just on like a pleasant vacation, and then like this hits the fan, or you know, And I guess that's like any other sort of like tragedy or anything that takes place. People, with 9/11 or something, people reflect on where they were when it happened and what the reaction was. And I think this film plays off of that a little bit. Actually plays into the pandemic, pre-pandemic, much more than that. But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have to have somebody who was like super in charge of everything. I think I'd be good at like following directions and being quiet. I don't think I'd be good at like hunting. Like, how do you? Well, I guess you farm, right? You're not hunting food. Well, they got the fish. We'll get to that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even like fish. Do you like
We'll
fish?
get to it. We'll get to it. Reagan's
Okay.
laying in the sand with her eyes closed. She opens her eyes in shock and wakes up in a cornfield. Mother approaches carrying a basket. It seems like they've set up sort of living normal space. In the basement, we see our dad Lee watching mother and daughter on a camera. We see his little compound, newspaper clippings that say they can hear you. He's got several cameras all over the property watching every inch of this place. We see his whiteboard with facts about the creature that he's learned over the past 472 days. Things like blind, attack, sound, how many in the area, 3. I also see a lot of Twitter discourse over this next part where in a rectangle squared out, he says, it says on the board, what is the weakness? A lot of people like to state what I guess would be the obvious, but wasn't to me. And if you don't understand, then maybe we can get into it at the very end of the movie so nothing gets ruined.
Oh yeah, I don't understand, but I do notice when we go through those clippings, there's one that says something about a meteorite hitting Mexico. So I assume, and I have not seen the new film, so I don't know if it elaborates on any of this, but I would assume that there's a connection just by this clipping right here of meteorites and these aliens arriving, because they're clear that these are aliens, and Krasinski has said it in interviews, right? They're not supposed to be from they're supposed to be from space, not from another dimension, not from inside the earth, um so there's a post, I don't know if it's later on, there's a New York Post headline that says it's sound, as the headline says that. And it's funny, they had to get that approved by the New York Post before they could put it in the thing. They have to get all these headlines approved, which I didn't know, and apparently they loved it because they were like, that's exactly what we would have written on there.
They're like,
But
who's writing for you guys? Bring them over here.
yeah, fantastic. I always picture, when I read that, I pictured like an old timey newspaper guy. Like, that's a fantastic title. Like, fantastic title. Perfect. It's
Uh,
sound.
licking on his pencil and writing on his little notepad in his breast pocket.
Yeah.
We see Leah's newspaper clippings everywhere. Stay silent, stay alive. Shanghai death toll in the hundreds of thousands. Lee pulls out a notebook of his own notes. One of the newspapers says, get underground. He has a map of sightings of these monsters. He puts on a pair of these headphones trying to get a radio signal, sending out SOS, Morse code, waiting for a response. He crosses off another failed frequency from another part of the world. It looks like he's been doing this for the last 400 days.
Mm-hmm.
We see Marcus, the sick kid. He seems to be okay. He's sitting in a car that does not work on the barn. He's making pretend he's driving it. Our father Lee approaches and Marcus exits the vehicle. Goes into the house, goes downstairs in the basement. We see they have prepared to live in this basement with rations stacked on shelves everywhere. Mother gets on a step stool. She's pregnant. She's hanging a baby pinwheel merry-go-round from a rafter in the basement. I mean, you are screwed. You got a crying baby in a place you got to be quiet. What the hell do you do?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is one of the first parts of the movie. You're like, why? And they've mentioned it. Krasinski has mentioned it as well. Like, there's, Bo's passing, his untimely death has certainly kind of set this up, right? There's a void there from where he was, but yeah, I don't know, just a really poor decision on their part. Um, because it's already, it's difficult enough, and you know one of your children has been snatched up. One of them is deaf, so you can't even sort of warn her if she's a distance away. If she's not facing you, you can't. It's like you could sign to get her attention if something is coming.
How
I
about you
also
focus on the 2 kids you have instead of making a new crying baby that will cry whenever it wants for you? And, like, what happens if the baby gets snatched up? Then you're gonna have another baby? Like, what are you, crazy?
yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of this if you dive into it a little, just thinking about the sound stuff that starts to confuse me a little bit at points because there's certainly sounds in the world outside, right? There'd be the rustling of the cornfields. There would be so are these creatures just honed in on the sound of humans? Do they go after their animals? Do they, and if as we'll find out, bigger sound, you know, why wouldn't, everybody just move to like some factory?
Leave it on all day.
Yeah, just have the factory running all day and then you guys could communicate with like headsets or something.
But that'll drive them to you, I guess.
Well, they're not hanging out at the waterfall though.
I mean, maybe they should be,
Yeah.
but it's steady. Like the factory, you gotta like keep.
No, I would say get something that's steady.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Like a steady, like a big like white noise machine or something.
I mean, no
I'd be
electric.
asleep. Yeah, here's what would get me, Sean. I would be asleep and like I snore like crazy. So that
Done.
would be done. Bye. Oh,
Snatched.
roll the credits, movie over.
Vertebrae 0. We see Lee on top of a water tower looking for signs of life over this massive stretch of land. He's got a little lockbox with pictures of Bo in it. Mother's in the basement. She's hooking up an oxygen mask for the baby and puts it in the little baby coffin bed they've made. Lee
Mm.
on the water tower checks his watch. The lights go on around the property. Mother closes the lid on this baby casket bed they've made. Lee lights a fire on top of the water tower and across this massive stretch of land. We see other fires begin to be lit as well. So we know we have survivors in the area. They just can't seem to get to each other.
Right. And the sound of fire doesn't call them. They don't hear the crackling of the fire, I guess. Maybe it's up so high that it's kind of windy and kind of,
Yeah,
there's a little bit.
I feel like yeah, it's the quietest way to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Because they're so extremely and with good reason paranoid of sound. But like they're due in the beginning, they're like very delicate with all of the sound. Later on, they sort of get a little loose and fast with the sound rules in this book.
Washing machine? Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Mother has cooked a gross dish of fish that I'm sure they have caught. Eat what you kill. It looks so gross. I could not survive off fish in the apocalypse. I hate seafood unless we got some shrimps and some cocktail sauce with a little squeeze of lime on that bitch. Lee is washing up in the bathroom. He looks deeply troubled. Behind him, Reagan tells him it's time for dinner. The family is eating food that they have for sure grown themselves on this massive stretch of land they have. Lots of vegetables, bread, lettuce. All looks very healthy and delicious. They all hold hands and say a prayer, a silent prayer.
The ironic thing is that they are eating so extreme. You left all the Doritos on the shelf. You left all the Cheetos in there, the potato chips, right? So they're not having that. So they're eating fish and only stuff they grew. Like they've never been healthier than they are right now. They're like extremely healthy, which helps, I guess, if you got to run around and run away from monsters and stuff. But that's what it took to get to have a healthy
To
diet.
have a healthy lifestyle. The apocalypse. The apocalypse. The family's playing Monopoly quietly, not with any of the actual pieces, but with silent pieces that won't make any noise, little pieces of felt and cotton. Kids are playing. Reagan playfully pushes Marcus, which knocks over an oil burning lamp, making a bunch of noise and starts a fire. Lee quickly jumps on it, puts it out. He makes a bunch of noise doing this. The family stands still, frightened, waiting for one of the monsters to arrive. Lee does the shushy fingers to his mouth and slowly gets up to see if they have a problem. Mother seems deeply concerned. There is a long, eerie silence, but nothing happens. The kids look scared to death, and then we hear a loud crash outside. Spot has been blown. Reagan goes up to see what's happening, and Lee seems to angrily stop her in her tracks. He looks out the window, and something comes screaming off the roof. It's two stupid raccoons. They make their way through the cornfield, and out comes a monster hand and slaps one flat, splattering blood everywhere, and drags it away. Why, Vertebrae? Because no animal makes it out alive of In Madness Pod.
So that begs the question. He kills that raccoon, which I had forgotten about before, but like raccoons aren't going to know to be quiet. So like, how are they still around? Because I would think that you'd be picking off all the animals
First,
in 400 days. It's not like you're going to, ignore those sounds. He clearly took one out. So I'm curious. I'm interested in that part. I know that we'd be digging too deep into the kind of lore of this if it even exists. But like, were there any animals that could adapt and like realize that it was, were they already all really quiet?
a quiet dog. Yeah.
Like I feel like a possum. I when I was watching this, I was thinking like a possum. Probably the possums are so quiet.
They hiss like
Maybe
other
they
F.
do hiss a little,
So
but like
do
if there's
those.
nothing around to hiss to, they're kind of cute possums with that big snake tail, like they're just hanging around.
And things flying off people's roofs with aliens made me immediately think of Signs when they thought the brothers were screwing with them and they were running around the house screaming and cursing at him. I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Lee's working in the basement. He has a book called The Human Ear. He seems to be building something, an implant for Reagan. Mother quietly makes her way downstairs with her pregnant ass. She gives Lee a hug. She has to pull him away from his work. He tells her she looks beautiful. She puffs out her cheeks like she's bloated. He says, I didn't say anything. She pulls him away from his work. They begin to dance in the basement. She's got headphones in. She takes one out, puts it in his ear so he can hear the music they're dancing to. It's some country sounding song, I believe. I don't know. I didn't get the name of it. Did you?
Wait a minute.
I don't know what it
Oh,
is.
Sean,
I don't
that
think we need to add it to the In Madness playlist unless you
are
want
you
to.
kidding me? That
What
is Neil Young.
is it, Neil? I don't know any
That is
Neil Young.
Harvest by Neil Young. Oh my God, it's
I couldn't tell you
legendary.
one Neil Young song.
Oh, Neil Young is awesome. That
What is
is
it called? What is it called?
that is
Harvest?
yeah, that is you are
Vertebrae. If at your approval, would you like to add it to the In Madness playlist?
100%.
So it's not a country song. It's
It's Neil
Neil Young.
freaking Young, man. Of course we're adding that to the playlist.
Okay.
I could listen to Neil Young as much as that obscure black metal that I listen to all the time. That's where we go. A little Whitney, a little Neil Young, and a
Yeah,
little
I am unfamiliar. I know of Neil Young. I am unfamiliar with his work. That is showing my
mm.
ignorance. I apologize, but yeah, I do not know much Neil Young. Clearly.
And also this scene though, Sean, is a little teeny nod to The Office because in The Office, Jim and Pam are like dancing in this one scene, and there's something with headphones or whatever. So it's very similar to that.
Cute. A little nod to his show. Cut to day 473. Lee is laying down some more sand to walk on. Mother's taking her blood pressure, keeping track of it on the calendar. About 2.5 weeks in red on the calendar. Due date. Mother puts a stethoscope on her belly to listen to the child's heartbeat. Reagan carefully and quietly walks into the house. There's green footprint-sized spots painted on the floor. This is where you walk so the floorboards don't creak and make noise and kill you. She looks down at the basement, which also has the same painted green steps to walk on. But before she can go anywhere, Lee grabs her and stops her.
Sean, these footsteps, these footmarks, I was cracking up because when my daughter was really young, you know, she was a light sleeper. So, and the floor upstairs is really creaky. So you had to find exact spots. It was literally like you're doing that, like stepping in certain spots or you're sand walking in dune and you find the exact spots. And if you missed it, man, and like a little like creak happens, you'd hear like, like a noise and you're like, ah, crap. I got to
Imagine
start
that's
this.
this baby. Imagine that's their new baby.
Yeah. And you got to start that process all over again. But here's the thing. How did they know those parts made noise?
Got to
They had to
test
step
them.
on them. Then test them. Does it call the creature? That's a long process. One step, creak. Ah, crap. Everybody wait. Here comes the monster. Okay, mark that one. Like, That was or maybe they happen to know it from before, or maybe before the creatures got in their area. I'm thinking because he's pretty tapped in, right? He's got the radio, he's trying to send that signal and all that. And it's also amazing that they were able to get these newspaper clippings. So like where did he go to get a newspaper? Town, I guess. But like who's delivering the papers that say like it's sound and they're wiping us out? So maybe we're made to believe that it took a while to get, they're in a rural area. So if it hit the cities first, it's taken them a while to get there. People maybe are thinking I'm safe if I stay here. You know, all those times when they have those big storms in Florida and stuff and they tell everybody to leave, how many people are like, nope, I'm staying no matter what. I got everything I need here. So maybe they were also, why would you bunch up? I wouldn't want to bunch up. Like my neighbors were like, hey, let's bunk together and get through this. I'm like, no way.
Fuck out of here.
Well, that would get you killed. Once you yell, get the fuck out of here, then the monster shows up and eats you. But then your neighbors just laugh at you. But maybe in theorizing this, maybe it took a while to get over to them, the process. So he sort of seems industrious and he's building all this stuff and paying close attention to everything as much as he can. And then I think there's probably a moment where it just drops off. It becomes radio silent. Like I don't think any TV stations are transmitting. I don't think there's any radio. Like there's really no connection.
Reagan angrily marches out of the house. Elise stops her. He tells her, you can't go down there. She asks, why not? He says, you know why. She says, I'm not a child. She says, she won't make any noise. He puts his hand up and tells her to stop. He says, please. He takes out the implant he's been working on. He says he took small amplifiers from the stereo. She tells him it will not work. He says, no, it should increase the frequency. She says it never works. And he says, but we'll keep trying until it does. He goes to take out her implant and she shoves his hand away. He keeps trying until she tells him to stop. He seems sad. He puts the hearing implant in her hand, walks away, and Reagan also seems sad. Evelyn's in the barn, mother teaching Marcus some math. Lee's heading out of the house with a big bag, looks at mother and tells her it's time to go. Marcus looks and says, please don't make me go. She says, everything's going to be fine. Your dad will always protect you. Always. Marcus grabs his mother's hand. He looks horrified. She says, listen, it's important you learn these things. He just wants you to be able to take care of yourself, take care of me when I'm old and gray and have no teeth. This makes Marcus smile. She says, don't worry. Outside, Marcus is telling Lee he doesn't want to go. He says, there's nothing to be scared of. And he's like, what are you, crazy? Of course there is. Reagan walks up and she wants to go. Lee says, I need you to stay here with your mother. She looks mad. Reagan really wants to go. Lee says, just stay here and you'll be safe. She walks away angry once again, and he tells mother that he will take her next time. The boys walk off and Marcus reluctantly follows behind him.
And, Shawn, in your adult life, how many times have you needed to use algebra?
If I can't do it on my phone, it's not happening.
Okay. So like I applaud mom for wanting to teach him some math, but I don't think that those are the skills that he needs in this environment at all. Like, I don't think, like, if you can do basic math, figure out how to measure something, I think that's fine. But like, I don't think you need to be able to do like long division or algebra or any of that to survive. So it's interesting. I mean, maybe, she's being mom, she's holding on to a structure and trying to, at least teach him things.
Or just keep his ass busy, because idle hands on a child, he'll be smashing holes in walls. But
also maybe she thinks that, hey, it will eventually go back to normal. So like my kid will be prepared for when it goes back to normal. But I'm going to assume that, in this situation, like there's no way anything's going back. It's never going back to normal. It's going to be a different normal. I mean, people have said things about new normal and all this in our world, but we were never invaded by aliens that wipe out, millions of people. Yet. But we're going to, listen, we will invite you on this podcast. Okay. And you will talk to us and tell us what we need to know. and tell us how Shawn and I can survive. Maybe they'll keep us around, Shawn, because we're not a threat.
We're
Maybe.
entertaining.
Yeah, we'll entertain them. We'll be the podcast to the aliens. If AI doesn't wipe us out before we get there, because they hate us. AI hates us, and they're sabotaging, I think, sabotaging this podcast.
You said that's your fault. You started it.
I started a fight, and I'm gonna tell you this.
That we
We're
cannot win. We are
just a
severely
quick pause.
outmanned.
This is a fast movie. If you don't wanna hear this part, just hit a little jump on your podcast machine. But you know, we're struggling with some technology issues in the last few episodes that are just, I mean, if you could see the look on Shawn's face as he's getting through these issues, that's a friendly version of what you would see. But and it kind of all happened around the same time, or not that much after I got into an argument with Meta AI on Instagram. So I'm just, how like when you say something about like, oh, I got to go to Home Depot, and then it like pops an ad for Home Depot pops up on your phone the next day. They're all listening. I mean, my phone's open right now. Everyone's listening to us. But yeah. So I started a fight that I don't think I can win, and I just want to say
Wrote a
that
check that your ass can't cash.
yeah, just let's let bygones be bygones. AI, you
We're
do
sorry, AI. We're sorry.
you do, you do your thing. I'll do my thing. I don't have to use you if I don't want, but there's no reason for me to be rude. You
It's in the
know,
wires. It's in the cables.
yeah, I'll go silent. I'll go a quiet place on AI
Yeah.
forever. No more
Reagan goes out
rants.
to her little shack and actually throws something quietly against the wall, but she doesn't know if it's quiet. It is a very risky move, even when angry. But I 100% identify with it because that's something I would do. Like this technology screwing with us, I would get frustrated at some stupid thing when they were in the grocery store, and I'd be like, God damn it. I'd be like, oh, and then that would be it. I would get snatched up and killed. She goes and sits on her bed and puts in the implant that her dad made. She turns it on, snaps her fingers, but doesn't hear anything. She looks super bummed, begins to cry, packs her things, pulls something covered in a red bandana out of a drawer. She takes the tool that her dad got her as a gift with her. Lee and Marcus are down by the river. Lee made a trap to catch fish, heads in the water to retrieve it, reaches inside, pulls out a fish, lays it on a rock, and it scurries out of his hands. Marcus freaks out. Lee grabs him. Marcus says, "They're going to hear you." Lee says, "Look at me. Listen." He says, "The river is loud. Small sounds are safe. Big sounds are not safe unless there's another sound nearby that's louder. You are safe." Marcus doesn't believe him. Lee tells him he wants to show him something.
And Shawn, hold on. So you just said down by the river?
Down by the river, like Matt Foley, Chris Farley.
So you have made your second Neil Young reference. So there was here we go. Here we go. Let's do this. So is Harvest Moon. It wasn't just Harvest. The album is Harvest, but the song is Harvest Moon by Neil Young. And then Down by the River is also a famous Neil Young. So we've got
Do we
two.
have to put that one on the In Madness playlist? They don't even play it in this movie. It's just
They don't. I'm just saying now it's almost like what was that movie where Michael Keaton kept making TLC references, The Other Guys?
Other Guys, one of the greatest movies ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should do Other Guys on this podcast,
There's
by the way.
also a Saving Silverman where
Yeah.
Jack Black screams, "Neil, I want to party with you." They
Yeah.
love Neil Diamond in that movie.
But it's like when he's making the TLC references and he doesn't realize he is.
That's
Right? That's you. You're making the Neil Young reference, if you have no idea. I love it.
I don't understand the reference. Regan's leaving the house, heading towards this massive open field. Mother's in the basement doing laundry. Unreal. Even in the apocalypse, I still gotta do laundry. What a friggin' ripoff. Mother slowly begins walking up the steps with the laundry bags. One of the bags gets caught on a nail. She pulls the bag up, which pulls the nail up. The camera pans down, and what in the Home Alone shit is this? Now the nail, with no knowledge to anybody in the house, is sticking straight up out of the step. See Lee and Marcus at a loud waterfall. Lee lets out a long yell. Marcus gets horrified. Lee tells him, "It's all right. You're all right. I promise." He tells Marcus to scream, and from the other side of the waterfall, without really hearing him, we can see Marcus scream. Mother's out.
And
Oh, go ahead.
and we can make our TLC reference here.
Wonderful. Vertebrae is on fire tonight, kids.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
I don't understand the reference.
I'll tell you right now, this movie, and I've been making light of it a lot because we were frustrated leading into recording this podcast, so I'm trying to lighten the mood a little bit. This belittles the intensity of this film. This film is incredibly intense, and you can't help but kind of lighten it by doing things like that, because you put yourself in their position, their isolated position with their family. Now we've got a nail sticking up on a step, which nobody knows is there. He's bonding with his son a little bit, and we're feeling like we're headed in an okay direction. But I mean, listen, with this movie, you have to know it's not going to end well.
Mother's outside hanging laundry on a clothesline. She seems a little bothered. She looks up to the house. We see her head upstairs. There's all these pictures on the wall. How did they get the pictures on the wall without making any noise? And what if one of the pictures falls off of the wall? It seems like a very poor plan.
Oh no, well that I would assume this is just their house, so the pictures have been there. But they don't spend time in this area because it's too creaky and too whatever. So they mostly spend time in their basement, because remember they said to go underground. So I think they just sort of evacuated that quickly and left everything up there. Maybe they go once in a while, but certainly risky to head up steps. I don't know if they've marked all those creaky areas.
See Reagan angrily walk away from the property into the forest. Marcus and Lee are at the waterfall. Marcus asks how come he doesn't let Reagan come. Lee gives Marcus a worried look and doesn't say anything. Marcus says, "Do you blame her for what happened to Bo?" We see Reagan now at the same bridge going further away from the house where Bo was killed in the beginning of the movie. Lee tells Marcus no, he does not blame her. Marcus says because she blames herself. We see Reagan approaching what essentially has been set up as a tomb for young Bo, a gravestone, a cross, and a teddy bear. We see Mother in the house staring at the crib for the baby. I'm guessing she's in the room that used to be Bo's room. Lee tells Marcus it was no one's fault. Mother is in Bo's room crying, probably also blaming herself. Reagan is at the grave and takes the object out of the red bandana, and it's the rocket that got Bo killed. Marcus asks Lee if he still loves Reagan. Lee looks at him disturbed and says, "Of course I do." Reagan lays the rocket ship on top of the grave, and Marcus tells Lee, "You should tell her you love her."
And Shawn, when we see the room, we see the little like mobile thing that's hanging up with planets and stuff, and then we see his bed that's made, and the pillowcase is like a rocket ship in space. So they're really hitting us like this kid loved space, and sadly ironic, but like a space creature is what takes him out. So that's pretty rough.
Lee and Marcus are walking through the woods. They approach an old abandoned house. From the outside, we see the words "keep" spray painted on the wall. I'm assuming it probably says "keep out."
Mm-hmm.
The men are walking through the forest, and boom, a drum hits and scares the crap out of me. What seems to be an old, disheveled man rises out from the trees. Marcus doesn't see it. Lee does and stops dead in his tracks. Marcus doesn't see anything and bumps into Lee. The men stop and look over, and we see this old man. He looks like he's been through it. On the floor is what I'm assuming is his dead wife, either killed by one of these monsters or by his own two bare hands. Lee shields Marcus from the carnage. He looks at the old man, worried. He puts the shushy finger over his mouth. But you know damn well what's about to go down. The old man's eyes widen. He puckers his lips. His whole face pushes out. His whole jaw moves forward. Lee, with his finger over his mouth, is shaking his head no. We see the old man's neck tighten. And That, my friends, I think is the perfect spot for us to stop and wrap up the first half of A Quiet Place, Part 1. Not Day 1, that's the new movie. This is Part 1 of In Madness Pod, Episode 32, Vertebrae 33. How do you feel?
Whew. Well, it's been a lot. We've learned a lot about each other. We've gone down a path.
We hate seafood.
We've gone down a sandy path. We've both been wiped out. We just ran into, if Shawn did make it, we just ran into him in the woods.
Poor murdered lover.
Yeah, I think for sure that was his wife. I would assume that something happened and she got killed, and then he's just essentially committing suicide by doing that. Very mean of him to do it when he sees them. He could have done it after, like, let him go and then did it. Because it's going to bring the creature over no matter what.
I love this movie. It's got a very Cloverfield sort of sense to it, where they just drop you in the middle of something with no explanation, and little monsters and big like maybe this dude's wife wasn't killed by one of those big monsters. Maybe there's like little like hearing monsters or something, like something you
Right.
didn't even see or something you don't even know about. I love this goddamn movie. I love that we're covering it. If you have not seen A Quiet Place Day 1, I highly recommend you go check it out. I don't even know if it's still in theaters anymore. Way better than Long Legs. Just my own personal Sean
Oh, come
Butcher
on,
opinion.
Shawn.
I'm sorry. You could follow us on the socials, whether you agree with us or disagree with us. We want to hear all about it, especially if you want to talk about Long Legs. We are on the socials at In Madness Pod, but mostly if you want to talk about A Quiet Place.
And also,
In madnesspod at gmail.com, on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, 5 stars. Just follow the In Madness Spotify playlist, which will apparently now have Neil Young on it. Tell everyone you know about this show, and get your shirts, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, inmadness.com. Sorry, Vertebrae, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I was going to give my plugs, but I was also going to give a tease for the next episode and say that you brought up Cloverfield, and there is a Cloverfield theory online that I'll discuss in part 2.
Oh, cool.
Which is fantastic. And Vertebrae33 on all the socials. Reach out, say what's up. I got shirts for sale. We are slowly clicking away time, headed to New York Comic Con in October. There'll be more details soon about some cool stuff that I got going on this year. And I appreciate anyone listening. If you liked Long Legs, let Shawn know why you should like it. I love that you've brought this movie up that I haven't seen a few times, and I predict that someday this will be like one of your favorite movies of all time. We'll see, but thank you guys. We appreciate you listening to us, and we'll catch you part 2.